Well, it's interesting. I'll tell you, things have not ever gone back to the way it was prior to COVID. And I'm not really sure, not just in healthcare, but in our lives in general, if things will go back completely the way they were before. I think there's some real positives that have come out of COVID. And then the way that we work and take time for ourselves and replenish and things of that nature. But it's also changed the way that we do business. We have seen that a lot of people during COVID that were closer to the age of retirement decided to retire during COVID because they didn't have to deal with it anymore. And it was such a difficult situation that nobody in our generation or any past generations that I know of have gone through something like a pandemic. So for us to get through it and live through it, I feel like as people and as an organization such as Compass, we find ourselves learning and growing every single day. And how we do business differently, actually how we recruit employees and we retain employees, because even people who weren't at retirement age, a lot of people decided to get out of healthcare because of that. They decided to do something else. Remote working has really changed the way that a lot of people view their quality of life and where they want to work or if they want to leave their home to work. And now that people have that option, which we didn't much prior to COVID, a lot of people decided to go into some type of remote work instead of having to come to an office every day or to our hospice center and work 12-hour shifts. So that has been a struggle for us during COVID and post-COVID. But I can say on a positive note that we have been very fortunate as an organization in a rural area, on the Eastern Shore in 3 counties, Queen Anne's, Kent, and Caroline, that we have been able to continuously recruit and retain quality employees. So we are, knock on wood, almost fully staffed. One would think that we would have seen more patients during COVID, that people that had a chronic illness or even a terminal illness that may not have accepted hospice earlier would have. And we saw some of that where people didn't want to be in a hospital setting and not be able to see their loved ones because that was happening because they had to put those stringent guidelines in place. Whereas a hospice facility and certainly patients going home, we didn't have as stringent as guidelines for visiting. We certainly limited the amount of visitors, but at home, people could have people coming in and out. So I do feel like we saw an increased amount of people that accepted hospice earlier in the trajectory of their illness that people did prior to COVID, just because they wanted to be able to be home with their loved ones, be able to see people that they cared about. And I think people really started looking at the pros and the cons or the benefits versus the burdens of continuously doing aggressive treatment, being in and out of a hospital setting when you do have an end-of-life illness that could be managed at home with under hospice or palliative care. Some hospices don't even have a facility where people can go. So the majority of the patients that most hospices see, or really all hospices across the country, including Compass ourselves, are patients in their own home environment or in a nursing home or an assisted living, wherever the patient calls home. Very few people, percentage-wise, actually come to our hospice center. We have 10 beds here in Centreville, and that accommodates Queen Anne's, Kent, and Caroline County patients. And very rarely are we full with patients at that 10-bed capacity because we have an average daily census of about 100 patients a day that we care for. And you'll see that we have less than 10 at our facility, so the remaining 90 plus are in their home environment, wherever they call home. Well, I'll start by saying that during COVID, we were very blessed because our supporters that have been dedicated to our organization, and even new supporters who came to live here during COVID, because a lot of people did relocate, right, to a rural area because they could remotely work, have been very generous to our organization. However, we did see a decline in fundraising during that. We couldn't do a lot of our in-person events during it. We have gotten back to that now. And also, some of our volunteers, not many, decided because of their age or their health conditions that they wouldn't continue to volunteer during COVID and some post-COVID. We are always looking for volunteers. We have Compass Closet, which is our resale shop in Kent Town Market, in Chester. That is run solely by volunteers, except for overseen by our volunteer coordinator, Robin. She's always looking for people for a 4-hour shift, an 8-hour shift, once a month, once a week, whatever people are willing to give. And it's a lot of camaraderie and a lot of fun for people to get to know people that maybe are new to the area, that want to make some friends, or somebody that might just love companionship or being around people and very social. So it's giving back, but also some enjoyment as well. And we have all kinds of volunteer opportunities, mostly our patient care volunteers, which see patients in our hospice center here in Centreville, as well as go into patients' homes. We have volunteers who do our help with our events. All of my board of directors is volunteers. A lot of boards are paid. My board is not. They all do it 100% gratis. And not only that, but they give of their own dollars and their time and their talents to be on our board of directors. So we have lots of opportunities, and we're always seeking volunteers. We always say that volunteers are the heart of hospice. We have hundreds of volunteers, and we have about 90 employees. So our volunteer population doubles our staff population, and we couldn't do it without the volunteers as a nonprofit organization.
What are we missing?
I think
How about philanthropy?
Yeah, it's buckling like a leather.
Woo! Thank you.
You just want to pull. There you go. You got it. I just noticed it. You're fine.
Thank you.
Say, yeah,
I was worried. That's why I said that, because it's such a
like a
light
shirt. Yeah.
fabric.
I didn't notice anything.
Okay, you're good. It wasn't bad. It was just
Okay.
whenever I noticed it was.
I'll check it.
Okay.
Philanthropy.
Yes. So we talked a lot about our services and COVID, and then our volunteer opportunities. And we briefly touched on people that were giving during COVID. Even during the tough economic times that we have faced, we still have garnered a lot of support from our community, though it did decrease during COVID. So we're hoping post-COVID and hopefully the economy will turn around. Who knows about that? I won't get into that piece. But that people still remember Compass as one of the nonprofits within our community, Queen Anne's, Kent, and Caroline County, that we are doing work with a limited amount of funds from the government, and that we really rely heavily on fundraised dollars to continue to meet our mission and provide services to our community.